All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest, Rob Wilson, and I'll be talking about him in just a second. But first, let me remind you why you're here, or tell you why you're here if you haven't been here before. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Rob Wilson is an amazing warrior. He leads Cowboy Wisdom Hypnoacuity, I knew I was going to trip over that. Hypnoacuity and Cowboy Wisdom XpansionRs, where he liberates clients from themselves, quiets their thinking, knowing, memory, mind, viewpoints, opinions, beliefs, and ancestors' ways to expand their dreams and achieve their desired life. Rob introduces people to modernized wisdom of expand, energize, enterprise, and experience a better way of expanding through life. Rob began his warrior journey in South Dakota, working hard on his family farm and ranch. He then worked in Wyoming oil fields and became a journeyman electrician. While working in Portland, Oregon, Rob began his journey of discovery and clarity, which led him to eliminating alcohol from his life. Sounds like a zombie there. Starting a home based business and associating with leaders with an inspiring and aspirational mindset. Always love that. These associations, books, audio tapes, CDs, and so on led him to beginning to rewire his mind consciously and subconsciously for success. Today, Rob is a regular on the Stu Taylor Show, Equity Strategies and Business Talk, and author of The Wisdom of a Cowboy, Crossing the River and Climbing the Mountain, and Wired for Change by a Journeyman and American Worker, Wages in the Private Sector. I kind of like that title. And Rob Wilson, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are things over in your part of the world today? I believe you're in Arizona, right? Is that right?
Yes, I'm in Arizona. Everything's good. The walk in the desert this morning was relaxing, and it's just I like the weather here, and I like the desert. There's some uniqueness there.
Yeah,
and that opens it up for me. And
yeah.
it quiets me down and lets me get into an inspired way of life.
Well, that's good. I mean, the thing is, our geography, our surroundings, not only where we live, but what we surround ourselves with. I mean, you mentioned in your story, which I think is, and we'll hear a little bit more of that, surrounding yourselves both in person and via books, audio, CDs, podcasts, whatever. I think that's a very important thing. If you're a coach, a mentor, and you don't have mentors, you don't have coaches, then you need that. But for sure, when we think about where we live, I think a lot of people don't really realize how much of a effect that can have and who we associate with, obviously. So I'm excited that you're here. Anything? I assume the weather is nice there this time of year out in the desert, right?
Yeah, and it's 68 to 80 degrees during the day. Wake up about 55. And I saw in the weather where Billings, Montana is going to be one below this weekend. So I feel really good.
Yeah, I almost took a pastoral role, a business pastor type role in Bozeman, Montana one time. And it was about this, I think it was this time of year. I think I remember seeing a memory pop up that said I was there. And there was snow. It was a lot of snow. In fact, it snowed while I was there. And as beautiful as it was, I said, yeah, no, not my cup of tea. I lived in Michigan, which I did that for 18 years and was never happier than very few things I was happier about than selling my snowblower and shovel. So
I can relate to that.
so anyway, well, that's great. Well, let's do this. I want to make sure we have time. I know you've got quite a story and you've got a lot of things to share. So let's take a quick break. We'll hear a little bit for the audio audience of our theme song, It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be right back with Rob Wilson and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, Rob. Well, I'm a little jealous. It's not that much colder here. It was in the 50s today. So, but it's cool by Dallas standards too, being here in Dallas. But as I said, I want to hear about how you got from where you started to where you are today, and you get to pick where your warrior journey started. I covered a few things in the introduction, but tell me, how did you get from where you started to where you are today?
I was working in Portland in 1997, and my life, it just hits the wall and you stop. Mm-hmm. You don't know anything, you just become, basically you become the zombie.
Right.
Because you have no direction, you have nothing. Then I got into a home-based business that pushed personal growth, and they really pushed the life-expanding wisdom to people. And I really adhered to that. And the business the business itself didn't pan out very good, but the personal growth and sovereign expansion took me on a path of enlightenment. I started realizing that it was me and not the outside world was my challenge. But yet my hard-headed, stubborn way of thinking is still the outside world. And I kept blaming that and trying this. And I discovered I was trying to change the outside world instead of expand my inner world. And really let go of everything I thought, thinking, knowing, and stop letting my viewpoints, opinions, and beliefs control my life. And it started in 97, but it's been a steady downward path to about 2009 when I discovered the word expand over change. Mm-hmm. That's when it really took off. But I wrote a book in 2001. But between 2001 and 2009, my life, I was doing all the things. I was reading the books and doing what they say. But I was never moving forward. I was just kind of swirling and going ahead a little bit. When I discovered expand, I slowed down my thinking, memory, mind from controlling my life. Yeah. And that is when I really started to open up and realize the more quiet I made my thinking mind and opened up to the inspirations of my daily life. And see, I taught myself, and in the 2009 era, I taught myself that challenges, adversity, and controversy, I was doing something wrong. But it's just the opposite. Mm-hmm. The controversy, adversity, and chaos and challenges were fissuring my stranglehold on my past way of living and thinking and doing things. And that's all it is. And it breaks that stranglehold and breaks you out of yourself. And then I just started going forward. And every year I'd add something to it. Then I got into the expand, energize, enterprise, and experience. And that allowed me to re-image the subconscious mind, because when you use certain words, all the memories of the past are controlling your thinking and your thoughts. But when you advance and rise out of them words and use a new set of vocabulary that you develop yourself, that's something I really want to express to people, David, is open up and develop your own vocabulary that rises you out of your current way of life. Then I kept moving forward. Then I added liberate and appreciation in there. Liberate over heal, because healing, you're trying to think about what went wrong, and you're in all the muck of what was that situation. But when you use liberate, you kind of rise above that and move forward and appreciate over forgiveness. You really start developing your own confidence, courage, and valor to move forward, because you're starting to understand all the chaos and challenges of life have wisdom in the center, and insight and clarity and understanding to expand you. And when I started opening up to understand that, that's when I really started moving forward.
So let me interrupt you for a second, because I know after your mastermind, which, by the way, anybody listening to this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel, and where Rob gets into a lot of this conversation. But before we get into kind of like some of your learnings and the things you want to teach us, I don't want to blow past the challenges, because you've said a couple of things there which are indicative, and you even identified them as zombies, mindset things. But I want the audience to understand what kind of challenges you, in your introduction, you dispensed with alcohol. What kind of zombies were you dealing with there? I know we have a lot of warriors that have varying forms, whether they're alcohol or any other kinds of things that are ways that we basically medicate ourselves when our body is telling us, or our mind is telling us, we're not doing what we want to mute that. So we do those kinds of things. So tell me, what other kinds of challenges in your life did you have to overcome to get from 97, where you realized something had to change, to 2009? And you talked about some of those things that you've learned, but what were some of the zombies that you overcame?
Insecurity, immaturity, and talking about other people and being jealous of other people. Them are the 3-4 big ones. But I want to talk about alcohol. See, when people have alcohol or alcohol addiction, I never went to any deal. I just December 1997, I just quit because it no longer served me. But the thing about alcohol or any addiction, we try to expand out of it in the mind, but it's the body, the emotions. It all has to be discharged at the same time, because the first drink you take, your brain and your body and your emotions take a snapshot of that, and that becomes a memory. And that memory is what the subconscious and is trying to get you back to every time you take a drink. They're trying to get to that feeling, that emotion of the first time. It's like cigarettes, anything. It's the dopamine that the brain releases, all the good chemicals that you feel. That's what you really have to break. And David, what people have to do when they're wanting to expand out of an addiction is they got to find a new best friend that gives them the same dopamine and the same feelings as that addiction. And that's something a lot of people don't understand. An addiction is your best friend because it's the same. You can trust it, and it never goes away.
Yeah,
that was the thing I had to break through of.
So replacing the addiction to a substance or to your past, really, it's an addiction to a good feeling that comes from your past. There's also fears that keep us safe, that in our past, that also work in that subconscious mind, that can also hold us back. And it's fascinating. Today, I think we find, especially those millennials that are listening to this, it's not just alcohol. We say, well, I don't have that problem, or I'm not into drugs. But a lot of the times we're addicted to how many likes did I get? How many, how did that post, what kind of response did that get? We look at other people's curated content on these various social sites and say, my life isn't that good. I wish I had, and you begin addicted to that, addicted to things that really, or just you have to get your phone fixed, right? I mean, I know people, I know even myself, sometimes you find yourself feeling a little naked when you've forgotten your phone and left it behind. It's really and it's dopamine. It's just like you said, it's just another way of triggering that chemical feeling of good. So replacing that with dopamine, checking things off of your goal list also triggers dopamine in a good way, right? So it actually, so when you say find a new best friend, I assume you're saying, find things that are actually serving you that you can become addicted to, right? Is that
Yeah, in the now. Like
right?
for me, it's writing
Yeah.
and doing this. But for me, the biggest rush I get is expanding people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to get something inspirational that you can do. And see, a lot of people write journals. Well, instead of writing that journal, just write a book and publish it and let people have your wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just wrote books on my journey, whether they sold or not. It was my life expanding way of life. And it was just write the books. You're writing it because all the wisdom within the people that were hiding from the world will expand the world. There's 8.5 billion people in the world, and I look at it this way: there's 8.5 billion nuggets of wisdom out there to expand my life. And if I listen, I get them. If I talk, I never get them.
Yeah, I hear you there. I think that's a learning that comes a lot of times with age, right? Where we get everything and we think, I went to college and, interestingly enough, you said something you went to one of the things that I wanted to highlight here, because a lot of people have the experience. I had the experience. I graduated, from Wharton, got my business degree, full of education, right? Full of all this knowledge that I had. And I encountered a home-based business as a, talked to somebody, a friend was doing it, and I got involved. And again, I did have some success, but the most valuable thing, and frankly, I've heard it over and over and over again, those kinds of businesses had to help you transform from an employee mentality, a consumer mentality, to a leader, business owner, somebody who could actually, because the only way to be successful in those, whether they're network marketing or direct sales of any type or any business where you have people, right, is you have to work on you, because you have to be able to show people and help them. And so that personal development, which really is, as you say, inspired, it's not getting motivated. A lot of people they go to conferences, they get all hyped up, and then they learn it. But it's really surrounding yourself both with the physical people who are aspiring and to, be leaders, and then also doing that not just when you see them in person, but also reading books, as you've talked about already, listening to, well, back in the day, I'm old enough too that tapes were a thing. So I remember that. And then you have other things. Now today we have, you can YouTube, you can listen to this podcast and spend some time with Rob and I, and on this little journey. What other zombies did you encounter along the way? Anything else that you had to power through in that journey?
Yeah, I want to talk about the biggest one.
Okay.
This is the one that'll liberate you from you. And that's what liberated me from me. Stop thinking the outside world had anything to do with your life outside of being a tour guide. About 2, 3, 4 months ago, David, I was driving down the road and I was going up to the desert to walk, and it come to me and says, the outside world has done nothing to you. I said, what? And it's your own thinking, memory, mind, viewpoints, childhood. Everything that you think the outside world has done to you is actually inside you. Overcome yourself. And that's what Sovereign expansion is I liberate me from me and my viewpoints, opinions, beliefs, immaturity, insecurity, and the biggest one is jealousy and envy. Because we're always taught that that person has more. The person that has the most in your life is the person you see in the mirror. And something else I woke up to, and I actually heard this from off of a audio I was listening to, and they said they wake up saying, I'm amazing. And I said, I'm amazing and I'm enough. And I said, wow, that's nice. But here's the thing, that was there. So I discovered my own. I'm astonishing, dynamic, and accomplished, and even more than that. Start your day out saying something like that. As soon as you open your eyes, you want to express that to the world.
Absolutely. I teach my clients and myself, because I'm always reiterating the same things. Like you said, you use your words, you use the things that inspire you. I have to wake up every morning with gratitude. The fact that I woke up, the fact that I have another opportunity to move forward, the fact that, I have things that have occurred to me in my sleep, or, that really inspire me to get up and be excited about that day. And I think you can easily get focused on the outside world, and too many people do. So I said, we mentioned the phone, right? You got to check your email, check your Facebook post, check all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you're into that zombie behavior of reacting to the world outside you rather than moving forward with your own inspiration. So I love that that lesson, that zombie that you've had to overcome, and you have overcome. I know that's what you're also trying to teach.
Yes.
Well, let's do this. I want to get into, I know you're really chomping at the bit here about, sharing some of your story, not just your story, but also what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing today, what you've, obviously you've learned these things along the way, but what you're doing today, and then how you see yourself providing value, how you do it, and then what kind of impact you're hoping to have. So let's take another quick break, hear a little more of our theme song from Ricky Jean Wright for the audio audience, and we'll be right back with Rob Wilson and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, Rob. Well, I love the fact that as you've gone through your story, and that's one of the things that's so important, is warrior after warrior after warrior that I talk to, and myself included, by the way, we learn things along our journey that we realized had an impact on our lives. And then we want to begin to help other people not fall into the traps we've fallen into, whether that's writing a book, doing a podcast, whatever it happens to be, however you want to get that message out. And obviously you're doing that. So tell me, why are you doing what you're doing today? What is the reason that you're doing what you're doing today?
I want to see people have a life they deserve.
Okay.
And I come from, my childhood wasn't blessed. My parents had financial challenges and they had other challenges, but that was theirs. That's not, that's one thing I really want to touch on. Whatever your parents' life is, that was theirs. They were on their own journey. And the thing about your parents, everything you don't like about your parents, David, isn't in your parents. It's within you. That's just something I'll quickly touch on. And then when I did that, but what I want to see people have is to open up to realize their abilities and their wisdom is above all the education in the world. And their unique talents are above all the college education, everything you've ever heard about yourself. Your stuff is above that. And when you let go and liberate you from you and all your, quit talking about your challenges and stop talking about what happened yesterday and open up to listen for the clarity of your imagination, inspiration, innovation, intuition, and your talents, because them are natural to you. Everything in the outside world is artificial, because everything you've learned in a book is something else somebody wanted you to know. And if you go to a seminar and stuff, Listen for the clarity of the wisdom they're saying, but listen to it to expand you. And that will rise you out of your current situation. And you understand the everyday life is a tour guide. It's going to take you to the controversy and adversity and make it, because life is a trial and dare. They're going to show you your trials and tribulations to see whether you have the daring fortitude within you to listen, ask words of wisdom, and expand your own life. As much as we want to think we're all together, there's 8.5 billion people, there's 8.5 billion journeys, and there's 8.5 billion nuggets of wisdom. And see, I like to tell this to people. I want to expand 100 million people's lives. That sounds like a lot, but that's less than 2% of the people of the world. That's how vast the world is. And that's how much wisdom is out there for us to express. And all the challenges and the negativity of the world, that's just asking people to expand out of the negativity and introduce their wisdom, insight, and clarity and understanding to the world to allow the world to expand out of history. Because we were taught the misery of history. We never took time to understand history was trying to show us where wisdom, our history blocked moving forward. So it's really out of your own history and moving forward.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that on the mastermind, and that was one of the points that really resonated, I think, not only with myself, but some of the other leaders in the mastermind that are regular, is the fact that when you experience everything, I mean, not only history, but everything in our lives have both challenge and support. Now, we don't want to necessarily celebrate the challenge, except for not the challenge, for not the being outside our comfort zone, not knowing and having to learn something new. As I always say, it's not, there's no failure. It's either learning or success, and it can be both. Learning is success. So really, history, and that's we're a disservice, and I don't want to get that we're tending to do. We've coddled the challenge that people have to their way of thinking, and we've said, okay, we want to protect you, put you in a safe space, keep you from falling. Well, I have 5 kids and grandkids, and if the first time they fell or got hurt, I said, okay, I'm not letting you walk again. I don't want you to experience that anymore. What would happen? They wouldn't ever succeed or live to their potential, right? And it's the same thing. If we don't learn from history, if we don't see both the things that the positive as well as the negative attributes and learn from both, then we're just doing ourselves a disservice and those that we think we're protecting.
Yeah. And something else I'll share with everybody. When you're having a conversation with somebody, never say the words think and know. Because once you say the word think and know, your mind comes in. For think, you want to speak from inspiration. Know is understanding. Learning is comprehending. And listening for hearing, because you want to listen for the wisdom inside that conversation. And because think and know and the mind, when they get together, you're at the end of that conversation. Yeah. When you start listening and speaking from inspiration, like you was talking earlier, inspiration dissolves desperation, opens aspirations, then you become internally motivated.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you say you kind of said the impact. So you want to impact 100 million lives, and as you said, I want to change the world one dream at a time. And people say, well, how can you change the whole world? Well, if I impact you, and then you take some things forward and impact somebody else, I mean, 100 million people could change the planet. I mean, if you could truly get people out of their head, acting, moving on the cusp of their comfort zone, learning, expanding, as you say, and doing all those things, changing the way their mindsets process, you could have a massive impact well beyond 100 million people. And I submit that if you impacted 100 million people, probably the numbers are more like billions when you look at who those people impact and so on, right?
Yeah, it's just 10 people impact 100.
Right.
And also you said something in there. People, the biggest prisons in the world is your thinking, memory, mind, and the place you live and your working place, because your conversations every day are the same. And the inner cities are prisons with roads out of them. Every city, every place you're at is a road, but we imprison ourselves with our thoughts, our surroundings, and other people. So when you want to expand your life, just look around you and see who is in it, and whoever isn't for you, say, "Excuse me, but I've got to go."
Yeah, that's brilliant, and definitely a life lesson there. Again, your association, it's kind of become cliche, right? But
Yeah.
you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and those people can be physically in your presence, but they can also be the types of media you consume, the influences in your life, whether you've submitted, and it can impact every aspect of your life. That's why I think, you living where you are inspired to live, living in the desert, having that kind of a thing around you, that keeps that aspect of your life, supporting what you're doing. So if it doesn't support you, then it's challenging you. And we all need challenge, and sometimes it's good, but yeah, I think it's brilliant. Well, let's do this. We're going to get into what I call the land the plane segment, which means that when we get into the next segment, I'll give you a minute here to kind of prepare your thoughts. But if we take away anything, any 1 or 2 things or whatever from this discussion, this podcast, what would you want us to take away? And then we'll talk about how we stay in touch. So let's take another quick break. We'll hear a little more of It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright, our theme song. And we'll be right back with Rob Willison and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, Rob. Well, I'm already, I know that our conversations will continue on here. The things you share, the ways you look at things are always going to be, a little bit inspiring and challenging, and I think that's a great thing, getting outside the things, even the thoughts or the ways of saying things or looking at things, expanding our way of processing. It's called a this, it's a pattern interrupt. We get into a pattern, we get into muscle memory. We always say the same things, we do the same things, and as I always say, 95% of what we think today are the same things we thought yesterday. Only 5% is in our frontal lobe, where we move with intention. And if we don't engage those, either because we've substituted dopamine for masking, our feelings or our thoughts when we're outside our comfort zone, right? If we don't power through those, if we don't move forward, then our history becomes our destiny. And I think all of us want better for ourselves and continuing to move upwards. So give you a little bit of bandwidth there. Tell me, if we take away anything from this discussion from your perspective, what would you like us to take away?
The first thing I say is use the word expand over change, because there's pain in change. Expand is grand, to understand your current situation. And also, stop blaming your parents for your way of life. And whatever you don't like about anybody in the world or your parents, that's not in the external world. That's inside you. And you got to question that, or go to someplace or somebody and get it out of you. But whatever you're blaming the outside world on is inside you. And if you want to liberate you from you, you admit that it's in there, and you appreciate your current life situation. I don't care what it is. When you start appreciating it, you can expand out of it. And this is something I had to learn myself. Appreciate it, write it down on a sheet of paper, but write it down on one column and then go over to the other side and write something is so outlandish you could never even think of, and you never even think you can do, but write it down and make it as big and bold and bright as you can. And then understand where you're at here, wherever you're at here, this is the expansion. Everything in here is going to be new. And that's where your imagination, intuition, and innovation is going to expand you in there. And understand this, your unique talents are above where you're currently living. And it's above all the education and everything in the world, because your imagination, inspiration, innovation, and talents are above that. And when you get up above that, above the threshold where you're always at, you can see how you manipulated yourself into your own situation.
Brilliant. Yeah, I often say when we're processing things that are outside our comfort zone or whatever, creativity requires that rather than saying yes, but when you hear something, a new idea, a new thought, or you're experiencing something, is to say yes and. So always expand, always go, because that's where your creative mind kicks in, right? It takes hardly any mental energy at all just to repeat what you've already learned how to do. It's that discomfort. As I say, no growth occurs within your comfort zone. So we always have to strive to be outside that, what you call think and know, versus expanding our thought, right?
Yes, expanding the wisdom. And that's something you always want to ask too in the morning. Why is today, what events, experiences, and encounters are going to occur today for me to expand my wisdom, clarity, or whatever the words you desire to use, but life occurs for me.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And if you think about what am I going to see, then you'll be looking for those things. So you kick in what's called your reticular activating system, and then you'll see them. You know, it's not that they weren't there before, but if you're expecting to see the negative things that happened or the same thing that happened, right, then you're not going to notice those creative opportunities. Well, tell me, how do we, I know we can find you, this replay, excuse me, will be up on the Be Connected platform. So we can find you there, and that's Robert Wilson, Rob Wilson. They can find you there. But how else do we stay in touch with you? What's the best way for us to reach out, Rob?
Well, my website is mycowboywisdom.com, but my email is robert@mycowboywisdom.com. And on my website, there's a lot of videos and stuff and free reading. And something I'll say is I unpunctuated my writings to unpunctuate my life, because life is unrehearsed and unedited. And there's also some classes on there. And there's one class on there called The Gifts of Liberation. And that class will start you on your own journey. But also there's some free downloads on there. One is letting go, and the other one is a visionary vocabulary. But that one on letting go, the first 35 minutes is about letting go, but the last 25 minutes are inspirational words for you to expand your life. And it's really, if you want to expand your life, look in the mirror and say, if it's to be, it's up to me to be free.
I love that. And frankly, that is one of the things that, you mentioned early, when you were talking about learnings and, stop blaming your parents and stuff. It's more, it's really stop blaming things outside yourself, whether it's a government, whether it's your parents, whether it's the place you live. I came from a lower middle class environment. I've obviously gone well beyond that in my own life, and I'd like to see my children do that, but they have to learn the things that I learned, is that it's not the things outside you. It's not the zombies that are surrounding you, but it's actually that which is in your mindset. And so that's brilliant. Well, Rob, it's been
one more thing, David.
Okay, go ahead.
You can listen to the news tonight on November 17th, 2023 or 22. You can turn it on November 17th, 2023. You ain't going to miss nothing.
Yes, I fully understand that. That's That's an addiction that a lot of people need to dispense with, because those things are going to keep you tied up. They keep you on that's one of the things I love about the Be Connected platform is it's intentional. I connect with people that I intend to connect. The objective of the platform isn't to keep you there so that we can capture your eyeballs and sell you stuff and mine your data and all that stuff. It's really, okay, I want to connect with Rob. I want to connect with this person. I see that we have some shared value, and I think they can serve me, or I can serve them, or both. And that's a little different world that's why I say that this is what we are actually doing today and recording this, and where we're at today is on a social business platform. It's not a social media platform. And like I say, nobody trusts media. And I don't care whether you're getting your media on any of the, big tech platforms, or you're getting it from the nightly news, or whether you're getting it from the radio or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's still, you have to be responsible for that. So that's one of the reasons I'm so high. And for those that aren't on the Be Connected platform, you can go to, I'll put the link in the show notes here. But anyway, Cowboy Wisdom, look for Rob on that. And for those that are this is episode 99 of Warrior versus Zombie, and we're for those that have been with us for a while, you know that we're getting close to the 100. So look for a lot of exciting things and expansion, to use your word, Rob, from here. So I thank you for sharing with us today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. It's my honor and privilege, David. This is fun, because people are going to walk away with a fresh pathway of enlightenment.
Yeah. And I know they will. And let's stay on the journey, the warrior journey of continuing to expand and realize the possibilities that lie before us. So with that, let's hear the final outro. If it's not the getting there, we'll be back next Thursday with episode 100. And I'll tease that of Warrior versus Zombie.